Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Premier. Over the past 2 months, members from all three parties have travelled across the province to Hamilton, Ottawa, Sault Ste. Marie, Thunder Bay, Toronto and Windsor to hear what Ontarians needed to see in today's budget. They shared their concerns about the economy, about education, about healthcare and the high cost of energy. Today's budget day, but the Finance Committee is still writing the report that would normally inform this budget. This has never happened. It's a new era of pretend consultation under this Liberal government. It's been reported recently in the media, and I quote, Ontario's pre-budget consultations have gone from polite fiction to political farce. We will all be poorer for it. The only thing that's clear to New Democrats and the people of this province is this government's blatant disregard for what Ontarians have to say and the reality of their lives. Will Ontarians finally see their priorities reflected in today's budget, or it will be peppered with more broken promises and cuts to frontline services?
Mr. Speaker, you know, we pay very close attention, not just in the lead-up to the budget, but the day after the budget is released, Mr. Speaker, we start having a conversation with the people of Ontario about the next budget. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that we're listening to people all the time. I travel the province personally. My colleagues are all over the province talking to people constantly. I know that the reason that the Finance Minister went to the committee, Mr. Speaker, was that he wanted to have that interaction. We determined that it was important that we get the budget out early, Mr. Speaker. It is early. It's an early budget. I acknowledge that. There's a lot of uncertainty in this country, Mr. Speaker, about the economic realities. We wanted to make sure that the people of the province had the information, they had the latest update, that they knew what the plan was going to be in order for them to be able to understand the year going forward. And that's what this budget is about. That's what the early days is about, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Premier, I want you to hear what Ontarians told us. Bev Mathers from the Ontario Nurses Association said RN care in Ontario hospitals is being seriously eroded. In 2015, we lost 779 RN positions. Since January 1st, 2012, more than 25 RN positions have been deleted. A cut of 5 million patient care RN hours. Tom Cooper, director of the Hamilton Roundtable for Poverty Reduction, told us precarious employment affects approximately 44% of employees in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. He implored this government to take action because there are enough kids using food banks in Hamilton alone to fill 270 classrooms. David Mushi, the CEO of the Windsor Regional Hospital, where 169 RNs were just cut, told us that their hospital's hydro costs are increased by $700,000 just this year. Will Ontarians see their voices reflected in this budget today?
Yes, they will. Yes, they will, Mr. Speaker. They absolutely will. And on the issues that the member opposite has raised, Mr. Speaker, whether it is support for hospitals, whether it is the hiring of nurses, because the reality is that the member opposite doesn't talk about the nurses that are hired. She's not talking about the healthcare workers who are being hired. And in terms of precarious work, Mr. Speaker, I was surprised, quite frankly, that that the NDP wasn't more supportive of the support that we put in place for personal support workers and developmental support workers and early childhood educators, Mr. Speaker, a direct increase to the salaries of those workers who have been at the bottom of the salary scale. I would have thought that in terms of precarious work, they would have been lauding that.
Actually, your time was up, but I was also standing to have a little bit of quiet. Final supplementary.
Premier, what is more than disappointing is that this budget consultation was so flawed. New Democrats are hopeful, though, that in the 2016 budget we're finally going to see a strong commitment to improving health care and education, to creating good jobs and stopping the sale of Hydro One. That's what Ontarians asked us to focus on, and that's what we are doing. Speaker, business leaders from across this province asked us to focus on more affordable energy. Community leaders emphasized that this government has no mandate to sell Hydro One and correctly identified the lost revenue for this cash-strapped province before that you actually put in place, Premier. Because the Finance Minister rushed this budget forward, he doesn't have the report that the Finance Committee is still writing. This government doesn't have all the information, and apparently you're not interested in getting any of this information from the people of this province.
You also need to watch for the chair. Again, a reminder to all members, you speak to the chair. You're speaking to people in the third person. It helps with the debate. Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I acknowledge that the budget is early this year. The delegations and the information that came to the committee is a matter of public record, Mr. Speaker, and the fact is that people will see their voices reflected in this budget. But, Mr. Speaker, I would note that the member opposite, in her rhetoric, Mr. Speaker, and in the rhetoric that I heard from her leader on the radio this morning, Mr. Speaker, said nothing about the crying need for infrastructure to be built in this province, Mr. Speaker, said nothing about the need to increase support for the roads and the bridges and the transit, Mr. Speaker.
From Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Is from the Kitchener-Waterloo region, Mr. Speaker. She should understand how important it is that we have the resources to make the investments that are needed to make that corridor functional, Mr. Speaker. So, we will continue to implement our plan, but it includes investing in infrastructure that they are studiously ignoring.
Thank you. New question, the member from Haldimand, Norfolk.
Premier, some of us